بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise be to Allah, peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad, his family, his companions. By the will of Allah, we will move to a new subject in our training course, Misconceptions about Islam. Today, we are going to discuss a new misconception. It is one of the several misconceptions about women in Islam. So, misconceptions about women in Islam. The first misconception about women in Islam is this: Islam allows men to marry up to 4 women. And this is considered by non-Muslims or the opponents of Islam as oppression against women. Of course, as you know, Allah the Almighty prescribed for Muslims to marry up to 4 women. And this is well illustrated in the Holy Quran. Allah the Almighty said in the Holy Quran, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Then marry which pleases you of other women beside the first woman, beside the first wife, 2 or 3 or 4. This is a divine law from Allah. But the opponents of Islam objected this, rejected this. And they say, well, this is a kind of oppression against women. How can a man marry 2 or 3 or 4? It's not accepted. Of course, we are going to deal about this misconception from different views. And we will go step by step in responding to the opponents of Islam. First of all, polygamy through history and marrying more than 1 woman is called in English polygamy. So we are going to discuss polygamy through history. When you study the history, you will find that polygamy was practiced by different nations. By Arabs, by Persians, by Japanese, and Germans, Russians, and many, many nations. It was the norm in the past that men used to marry more than 1. This is the first thing about the history. Okay, when we look at religions, especially Christianity and Judaism. When we read the Bible, we find that polygamy is a divine law. Where? In the Bible. And the Bible is the book of the Christians. And the Christians are the people who raise these misconceptions or this misconception about women in Islam. Okay? It is written in the Bible that different or many prophets and messengers married more than one more women. Like Abraham, like Moses, like David, like Solomon and his sons. Married more than women. Had more than one wives. And this is well stated in the Bible. In Kings 9:16 and Kings 11:3 and 2 Crown 11:21. The holy book of the Christians, of course they call it holy book, but we don't. It states that the prophets and messengers of Allah had more than one wives. Okay. Of course, when you go to the church and you ask about polygamy, or you ask them, can anyone marry more than one wife or more than one woman? The priest in the church will say no. Of course, the church stopped polygamy in the past. But if you go and study the history of Christianity, you will find that the early Christians practiced polygamy. And it was accepted. It's only the church that made polygamy polygamy and accepted. Of course, when you come to them and you ask them, is it a divine law to prohibit polygamy? Of course, they cannot. But they broke the law. They broke the law. Not only polygamy, but other laws well stated in the Bible. And of course, the Bible states that judges must have more than one wife. Judges must have more than one wife. And not only this, priests in the church gave the permission after they broke the law and they stopped polygamy. Still, priests in the church gave some people the permission to have more than one wife, like Irish king. His name is Dithermat. And King Frederick II. They gave them the permission to have more than one wife. Who gave them? The priest in the church. Not only this, when Martin Luther, the founder of Protestants, advocated polygamy and made it accepted. Okay. Therefore, polygamy has been accepted through history. Polygamy is a divine law in the previous religions. Polygamy was practiced by the prophets and messengers. So this is the first station in discussing polygamy through history. Now, why polygamy in Islam? Why did Allah prescribe polygamy for Muslims? First of all, we have to admit that this is a divine law. It was a divine law in previous religions, and it is a divine law in Islam. And Allah knows what benefits His servants. He prescribed polygamy for Muslims because He knows well that this will benefit them, that will solve a lot of problems, that will cure a lot of illnesses in the society. Allah prescribed this law, and He asked the believers to submit to this law, not to reject it, not to deny it. And Allah, the Most High, said in the Holy Quran, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد ضل ضلالا مبينا. It is not for believing men and believing women who in Allah and His messenger have decided a matter that they should not have any choice, that they should not have any choice about their affairs. And whoever disobeys Allah and His messenger, he has certainly strayed. He has certainly strayed. A clear error. So it is a divine law. Allah the Almighty prescribed this law for Muslims in order to submit to Allah and to practice what Allah prescribed on them. This is the first point about why polygamy in Islam. The second point about this, the wisdom behind polygamy in Islam. Of course, we said that it is a divine law and believers should submit. Believers should submit to the orders of Allah. But we need to discuss the wisdom of this divine law. Okay. Look at the birthday rate in the world. in all countries of the world, you will find that female birth rate is higher than male birth rate. In some countries, the percentage of female could be 60% and male 40%. And this is a fact. We are not saying this in order to justify polygamy. It is a fact that female population is higher than male population in the world because of the birth rate. Okay. Other reasons make female population higher than male population. Like what? Like death. Death in male is higher than in female. Why? Because usually men go for wars. Usually men do hard jobs that causes a lot of accidents. Okay, so at the end, this result in increasing the female population above the male population. Okay, this is the first wisdom behind polygamy. Okay, suppose that every man marries a woman. We will end up with maybe 10%, 15%, 20% of women without what? Without husbands. Aha. Okay. Where to go? To spend the rest of their lives without husbands? Huh? And I will read for you a statement, a strong statement of an English scholar about this. He condemned the law of British that prohibit or stopped polygamy. His name is Jawed, the well-known English scholar, who said, "The stiff British system, which prevents polygamy, is an unfair and unacceptable system. It severely hurts approximately 2 million women in British, okay, who have become old maids. These women have lost their youth and were deprived having children. Thus, these women were forced to throw away the moral values as one throws the bet of the date." La ilaha illallah. There is no true God. This man had a mind. Give it a thought. If everyone in England marries a woman, then we will have at least 2 million of extra women without having husbands. These women are deprived of what? Of getting their, natural need. Having children. And not only this, this law forces these women to go around and throw their morals and bring the disease to the society. And this is a scholar from among themselves who said this. He condemned this law. Another wisdom behind polygamy in Islam. Islam came during the time in which polygamy was unlimited. It means that anyone can marry not only 4, maybe up to 100, maybe up to 200. It's not acceptable to have this number of women under your control. And it's not logic, of course. Islam came to stop such practice and to limit polygamy to 4 in order to solve many problems in the society, as we are going to discuss. Also, another wisdom behind polygamy in Islam. Suppose that a man married a woman. This woman becomes ill. She cannot fulfill his, for example, sexual desire, sexual need. She is sterile to give birth. And the man would like to have children. Okay, what is the solution? According to the non-Islamic laws, either to stay like this with this woman until death without having your sexual need, without having children, or to divorce it here. Okay, what is the solution? Is this a solution? No, it's not a solution. So it's better for a woman to stay with her husband and to accept another woman, another wife beside her, rather than to be thrown away, rather than to suffer the divorce if this is the solution. Okay? And also, another wisdom. There are many widows in the society. These widows having many children. And Islam prescribes this law in order to protect the widows and to protect their children. Where to go? Of course, someone will say, okay, we have social services. Come on. Social services. Okay, we are waiting for the social services. There are many countries who do not have social services. You can find it, for example, in America or in England, but you might not find it in other countries or in other regions. Okay? So, Islam prescribes polygamy in order to solve many problems. Okay. Now we come to a very important point in polygamy. Of course, when Islam prescribes polygamy for Muslims, there must be conditions for that. It's not going like this without being controlled. The matter is not looking for sexual desire. The matter is well organized by the Islamic law. Therefore, Islam puts conditions for polygamy. these conditions must be applied. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. Otherwise, it will bring oppression against women without these conditions. What are the conditions of polygamy in Islam? The first condition in polygamy is justice. Justice. The husband must practice justice between his wives. He should divide his time, his money amongst their wives in order to bring justice amongst his wives. And unjust treatment towards the wives is a big sin in Islam. Is a big sin in Islam. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told us this. Any Muslim, any believer, any Muslim who has wives and does not practice justice amongst them, he will come on the day of judgment, on the day of resurrection, with one side of his body paralyzed. Why? Because he inclined to one of his wives. His one side of his body will be paralyzed on the day of judgment because he did not practice justice amongst his wife. That's one thing about justice. Another thing, the husband must divide material things amongst his wives. Concerning his feeling, he is not blamed. For example, a husband might loves one of his wives, okay, one of his wives more than the other. And he is not blamed. Because you are talking about what? Emotion. And you cannot control emotion. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said this. He told his Lord that this is my justice towards my wife that I can control. Oh Allah, blame me not for you about the thing that you passes and I don't passes. It is the emotion towards one of the wives. You cannot control it. However, other things, material things, you have to divide them amongst your wife justly. Otherwise, you will come on the day of judgment and one of your side paralyzed. Okay? Okay. Now, suppose that you cannot fulfill justice amongst your wives. And you know well this before any marriage. Allah told us in the Quran not to marry more than one. If we cannot fulfill or apply justice amongst the wives, Allah the Almighty said in the Holy Quran, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً. Then marry what pleases you of other women. 2, 3, 4. But if you fear that you will not bring justice among us, your wives, then one is enough. Then one is enough. The condition of justice must be met, must be applied. Otherwise, you should not marry more than one. You should not marry more than one. It is enough for you to have one wife, because you are not going to apply justice amongst your wives. A woman, a Christian woman, came to the center. And she said, oh, Islam is okay. But one thing I don't like. Of course, I realize this, that she is going to say, okay, polygamy. And she said, polygamy. Oh, yeah, I know, because you are a woman and you don't like this. And then of course, I described to her this divine law. And at the end, I said to her, well, this law is controlled for the believers, for Muslims. You know that Allah prescribed for us polygamy, but He asked us to apply justice. And if we cannot apply justice, we should not marry. We should not marry another woman. She said, oh, is this mentioned in your book, in the Holy Quran? I said, yes. And I recited this verse to her. And she was pleased. She was pleased for this. Because she realized that the matter is well controlled. Okay? Okay. So, another thing about polygamy. The first condition is justice. The second condition is to afford another household spending responsibility. It's not any matter. Yes, okay. You have, you are looking for your sexual desire without having any responsibility. No, you have to be responsible for that, for another household. Okay, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made this clear for us. Huh? Oh, the youth. Oh, the youth. If you afford to marry, okay, marry. If you afford to marry, okay, then marry. Okay. This is another condition. Affording another household. And this is by the statement of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And if this is the case for the youth who are not married, what about for those who are married? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told them, if you afford the household, then marry. If you don't marry. And we are talking about the youth who are not married. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, directed his speech to the youth who are not married. What about those married men? The condition of affording another household is more important, of course. So, affording another household is really one main condition of the conditions for polygamy in Islam. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told us that anyone has household and he does not take the responsibility of providing them with their need, he is one of the sinful persons. كفى بالمرء إثما أن يضيع من يهون أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, it is enough for a man. It is enough for a man to be a sinful person if he neglects his family. If he neglects his family, it's a big sin. He is one of the sinful persons if he is going to neglect his family. So another condition is to afford the household. Every Muslim is responsible for his family. He should provide them with protection, with maintenance, with all needs. Otherwise, he will be sinful. Of course, due to this strong conditions, polygamy, the percentage of polygamy in Muslim societies is low. Only few or low percentage of the Muslims practice polygamy. Okay, if I ask you, what is the percentage in the Muslim societies who are practice polygamy? Maybe 2%, 5%. I think not more than 5%. Why? Because they look at these conditions: justice and affording another household. However, this percentage of polygamy in Muslim societies is enough to solve the problems related to what? To the extra women in the society, to the problems of the widows, to the children who do not have fathers, to the wives who suffer some illnesses. Okay, it's enough to solve the problem. Allah knows the best what benefits us and what harms us. So He prescribed for us polygamy in order to make this life nice for us, in order to avoid many problems related to marriage. And you will see the polygamy in the modern society, how they suffer, how women suffer, how children suffer, how the whole society suffers. Of course, Allah prescribed polygamy for Muslims and made it a divine law, and He asked them to submit. He asked them to submit to His orders. Of course, some women do not like this, and it is a natural feeling in the women. any woman does not like polygamy, of course. But Islam looks not to individual feeling. Islam looks to the whole society, to make the whole society in a good condition, to solve the problems of the whole society. At the same time, Allah asks the believing women to submit to His orders. And when they submit to His orders, they will receive the big reward in the hereafter. Of course, if they suffer polygamy, it is for the sake of Allah. If they miss something in this life, they will not miss the great reward in the hereafter. And whoever, I'm talking about women, Muslim women, whoever submits to the will of Allah, to the divine law of Allah, Allah will receive her in the hereafter with big reward in the paradise, where eye hasn't seen, ear hasn't heard of, and mind hasn't imagined. We are talking about few years in this life. To be patient with Allah. How many years? 20 years? 30 years? 40 years? And then in the hereafter, paradise. And Allah stated this in the Holy Quran. Allah, the Most High, said, إنما كان قول المؤمنين إذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم أن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا وأولئك هم المفلحون. لا إله إلا الله. The only statement of the believers when they are called by Allah and His Messenger to judge among them or to judge between them, to say, we hear and we obey, and those are the successful. The successful in this life, and the successful in the hereafter. What do you need after that? This is the real success, to submit your will to the will of Allah. Okay. Now we are going to open a new discussion related to polygamy. It is the polygamy in the modern societies. Of course, they claim that Islam oppresses women through polygamy. And look to this society. They reject the legal polygamy while they practice illegal polygamy. Polygamy in modern societies nowadays is practiced through what? Through girlfriends, mistresses, sweethearts. Hey, that is different. And it is practiced by both single and married. Okay? You know why it's practiced? Because polygamy is not a law in their societies. They have only monogamy. One wife. Okay. Where? In the society? One wife? Come on. If this monogamy were practiced in Islam, it would be successful. Why? Because we are talking about the believers, either men or women. They will not go and look for other ways of spending their sexual desires. They will submit to Allah and be patient. But in modern societies, people are away from Allah. They are looking for anything to fulfill their desires. And one of these desires, sexual desires. Of course, in the modern society, they are allowed to marry only one woman. Okay. One woman, for some men, is not enough, because it has been proved clinically that male or men have more sexual desire than women. So, in modern societies, they are allowed only to marry one. And they don't have the righteousness to stop looking for another woman illegally. So because of this, they look for other women illegally. As I said, boyfriends, sweethearts, mistresses, and other types of polygamy. And this is a cheap way for them. Why? Because in the modern society, they don't want to have any responsibility towards families. As a matter of fact, nowadays, men do not like to marry. Why? Because they are trying to run away from this responsibility. They don't want to have the responsibility of the household. Therefore, the cheap way for them is to go for illegal polygamy. Now, let us look at the problems of illegal polygamy in the modern societies. Many problems. To the extent that United Nations itself complains about this. What are the problems of not having another wife in the modern society as an illegal marriage? The first, of course, the victim of this, the victim or the victims of this are women, children, and the society. First of all, let us discuss the children. Illegitimate children. Those children coming out of wedlock, out of marriage. The United Nations recorded that 50% of the modern societies, 50% of the children in the modern societies are illegal or illegitimate children who come from who came from the out of the wedlock, out of the marriage. And they wrote a report about this problem, of course, in the United Nations. And the author of this, of the report related to the illegitimate children said this about the Islam or the Muslim countries. He said this: Islamic countries, and of course, this was published in 1995, this report by the United Nations. The editor of this report said, Islamic countries are protected against such social problems and diseases due to the fact that the people practice polygamy. This problem is not in the Muslim societies, and if it does exist, it is not, a major problem. It is not a major disease, as it is in the Western countries or in the modern societies in general. Okay, another scholar or a thinker, his name is Gustave Le Bon, the well-known French thinker, said in his book Arab Civilization. He said this: polygamy enables the society's social crisis, prevents the mistresses' problem, and cures the society from illegitimate children. Who said this? One of the modern societies, one of the Christians who are raising such misconception about Islam, about women in Islam. Okay. Another major problem in the modern society related to the illegal polygamy. They are condemning, or rejecting the legal polygamy in Islam, and at the same time accepting the illegal polygamy in the modern societies. How do they judge? Another major problem. And it's happening nowadays. The spread of severe diseases in the modern societies due to what? Due to this illegal relationships between men and women. Because if you restrict a man or a husband not to have another wife, and he has more sexual desire than his wife, the only way is to go illegally. Okay? And if you stop men from marrying another woman, okay, you are putting the extra women in the society in the place of suffering. So they go and search for boyfriends, search for others. If you restrict the marriage to only one wife, and this wife becomes ill, then her husband eventually will go illegally. And the result is this major disease. Like what? HIV, AIDS, herpes, fatal diseases that kill millions of people in the world nowadays. And the modern society really suffer from these diseases. Subhanallah. At the end, of course, I would like to tell you that women in the modern societies suffer the most because of monogamy. They said polygamy in Islam is a way of oppression towards women. No, it's the opposite. Who really suffer the monogamy in the modern societies? Women really suffer. As this English scholars, they throw their morals as someone through a bit of a date. Because they don't find other husbands. They don't find husbands. And at the same time, or another thing, when they go for illegal or to fulfill their sexual desire and get children, they take the responsibility of the children. Because the boyfriend just spend his sexual desire with anyone, with a girlfriend, and go away. He does not have any responsibility. Even the law cannot take him to the responsibility. And she, or the woman, is the one who suffers. She spent the rest of her life taking care of these children. And their husbands are going around with other girlfriends to spend their sexual desires and leave their victims. Oh, go away. I was in America and I had a neighbor, a lady. She had, I think, 3 kids with different colors. Where are their fathers? They ran. And they left her with the children to suffer and to take the responsibility. This is the polygamy in modern societies. And you have the mind to compare between the two. May Allah reward you. And سبحانك اللهم بحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستعينك ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك.